Who should stay? Who should go? I'll tell you which Panthers free agents they should keep around for 2026 right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and for listening to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. If you have been tuned in over the last month or so, you have heard, as we've gone over every single position group offensively and defensively here in Carolina, discuss how the Panthers should address each of them this offseason, and even talked about the state of the offense and the state of the defense, which we did yesterday on the show, and looking what the Panthers have, what their needs are, how they may address some needs there via free agency and the draft. Talked about some targets. Today, let's focus on the guys who are on the roster last year who could be on the roster again this season, but right now heading into free agency, they're going to be free agents, unrestricted, restricted, exclusive rights. Let's talk about which of those guys should stay, who should go, and also maybe who should be allowed to test their market, as it could go either way for Carolina in wanting these guys to return. So let's focus on first the offensive side of the ball when looking at unrestricted free agents. There were 5 offensive linemen who are unrestricted free agents coming up here when free agency starts on March 9th, noon Eastern, the legal negotiating period. Then on Wednesday, March 11th at 4 p.m., those deals that are agreed upon on Monday and on Tuesday, the 10th, those become official at 4 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday, March 11th. But 5 guys right now who play on the Panthers offensive line last season are unrestricted free agents. That's Austin Corbett, Josh Nijman, Cade Mays, Brady Christensen, and Jay Kurhan. Now, obviously, all of those guys played different varying roles last season for this team. Cade Mays ended up being the starting center at the end of the season when he was healthy. Austin Corbett was the starting center in camp and to begin the season before a knee injury there in week 2 in that loss against Arizona. He came back, started a couple of games at center when Cade Mays was out, played a little guard, but he's been banged up really the last couple of seasons. He came in his first year in 2022, held it down at right guard, played every single snap until tearing his ACL in week 18 down there in New Orleans, which cost him the first 6 games of the next season. Then he came back, did not play well, hurt his knee again, this time being a meniscus, came back the next season, torn biceps, came back this season, ankle, knee, all of it, just a ton of issues that he had this past year. Except I don't think he had an ankle, it was a knee injury that he had early on in the season. So Austin has been going through it here injury-wise in Carolina the last couple of seasons. And for me, because of that, it feels like it's time to move on. Now, he already made it known during locker room cleanout day that his family, they're going to spend time here in Charlotte after his career is over. They want to make their home here in the Carolinas, which it's a great place to live. Obviously, we see all the people who move here every single day to the Charlotte area. He wants to do that once his career is over. I do believe his career is over in Carolina and honestly should be over after just all the injuries that he's dealt with the last couple of years. You just can't rely on Austin Corbett to be out there on the field. And he did not play well this past season, even when he was out there. He admitted as much as I like talking to Austin, think he's a good dude. He's just not what Carolina needs on their offensive line heading into 2026. So he should go. Josh Nijman, I'm thinking he should stay. Why? Well, Ickey Ekwonu. That's why. We know ruptured patellar tendon, likely going to miss the beginning of the season. Sure, you can think positively that he'll be ready to go week 1. I don't think that's realistic just based off of the recovery time for a lot of those guys and how long it takes to get back, and that he's a 300-pound plus individual. Like, that's a lot of stress there on that knee. Is only going to make the rehab a little bit more complicated for him to get back out. And it happened last month in January of this year. And they'll be back out there. I believe it should be the 13th of September will be their week 1 game. I mean, that's not close, but still, it's not that far away. So I don't think Ickey will be good to go. They do need someone to fill in at left tackle for the time being. It would make the most sense to me that they have someone who already understands the offense and the dynamics in that position group room. Now, obviously, you want to get the best player available, but how much is that player going to want? And are they going to be cool? Because they're going to say, yeah, I'm cool starting. But if they're playing well, are they really going to be fine becoming then that swing tackle and playing behind Ickey and playing behind Taylor Moton? Maybe, maybe not. They're knowing what they're signing up for, you would think. But once you get into it and you feel like you're helping the team out, you don't want to come off the field. So I think Yosh Nijman, just the fact that he's been there the last 2 years, that he's been a swing tackle, he's been fine for them. He makes the most sense just being that fill-in if it's only going to be 4 weeks or so. Now, if it's going to be half the season, the majority of the season, maybe the whole season, then yeah, they need to look elsewhere. But I think anyways, if it's going to be like that, you're going to need not just Nijman and Moton, you're going to need a third tackle. So you got to look at getting 2 tackles this offseason. I think Yosh Nijman is someone who needs to stay. Cade Mays, he was your starting center at the end of the season. He was even before that once Austin Corbett went down. We talked about this a little bit on one of our previous shows here recently. How invested are the Panthers in Cade Mays? This is a guy who, under this regime with Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, and Dave Canales, they cut prior to the season in 2024. Then they brought him back only because Austin Corbett was out injured and they needed to have another guy in that locker room who knew what they did offensively as far as protections and playing that position. And it took until Ickey Ekwonu injured his ankle for Brady Christensen, who was playing center, to move out the left tackle to allow Cade Mays that opportunity. Then Cade played well, ran with it. Bryce Young turned things around as that was going on. It feels like Cade is and was their best option going into this past season, but they wanted Austin, even though he had dealt with injuries. They liked Austin Corbett. It took a while. Eventually, Dave Canales said, yeah, Cade Mays, that's his job. I just wonder whether they want him or not. So I think that what they need to do is allow him to test the market. Now, that may be over immediately as there's going to be a team that's going to want him, but look at the rest of the center market and see who out there could be that franchise center for you for the next 4 years, hopefully. That's what I think they should do. So allow Cade Mays, not to necessarily stay or go, but to test the market and then to come back to you and see how things potentially can work out if they think that he's value-wise the right value for whatever he might be getting out there on the market potentially. Brady Christensen, he talked about, when I asked him briefly during locker room cleanout day, that it sounds like they want him back. He ruptured his Achilles tendon, and man, that's a tough injury to come back from. And he's been banged up. He also had a biceps tear. He's been that backup. He's been that guy who could play center, could play guard, could play tackle for you. So there's value there in bringing him back. I would say go. I wouldn't have a problem if he stays, but I would just move on if I'm Carolina after him being here for 5 seasons and then having to recover from an Achilles. Like, that's the one thing. You already got one injured offensive lineman. And Ickey, do you want to bring another guy who's an unrestricted free agent back? Maybe not right away in March. Maybe you wait till April. I would say go. And then Jake Curhan, he got a couple opportunities. I think developmentally, might as well let that guy stick around. So I'm cool with him staying. The other 2 unrestricted free agents offensively are David Moore and Rico Dowdle. And part of this show is me thinking what they're going to do and also like what I would do if I was Carolina. I'm guessing he's going to stay because of the relationship that he has with Dave Canales and this offensive coaching staff dating back to his time in Seattle. And that's totally fine. He can stay, be that vet in the room, maybe play some special teams. I'm fine with that. I don't think he's going to add much value outside of that. They have T-Mac and Jalen Coker as 2 guys who are going to play a lot. I think they need to get a true wide receiver 2 in there. It's going to be those 3, then some Jimmy Horn Jr., maybe Bryson Tremaine, and then maybe David Moore after that. So that could be your 6. We'll see, but I think he stays. Rico Dowdle, this is one I've been pretty straightforward over. Let him go. Or at the very least, I'm going to say test. Let him test the market. With the running backs, you got to get it while you can. where you can. I don't know if Carolina should be the team that's going to be paying him a lot of money, considering the Chuba Hubbard factor with him being under contract. And it doesn't really matter how much they're paying him. He's got one more year, really, where they can keep him there and then they can move on after this season if they want to. They got Chuba, they have Jonathan Brooks, which you don't know you have in him just yet, which makes it a gamble to let someone like Rico go. And then, of course, they have Trevor Etienne. So they have three that they can rock with. They need a fourth. That fourth could be a Rico. It could be a draft pick. It could be some other vet out there making federal minimum wage the league minimum. It doesn't have to be anything big time monetarily as far as that investment. So I think you let him test. I think he's probably going to go. But yeah, at least let him test the market. Now there's three guys who are restricted and or exclusive rights free agents. Restricted free agent, the only one is tight end James Mitchell. He barely played last year. I think that's a room that needs to get better. You can bring back Tommy, you can bring back Jaycee, you can bring back Mitch Evans, but you need to add someone in there who can be really a difference maker. And I don't think that's James Mitchell, so he can go. Exclusive rights, that's Jalen Coker, that's Bryson Tremaine. These are two easy ones. Jalen Coker is going to stay. We know that. It's already been said by Carolina that he's going to be one of the two guys get an opportunity at receiver on the outside there with T-Mac. So he's going to be back. Bryson Tremaine, I would also think, will be back for Carolina this upcoming season. So as far as stay or go or test, pretty simple with those two young wide receivers. James Mitchell can go. Kurhan, sure, why not stay? Christensen, go. Cade, let him test. Josh Nyman, stay. Austin Corbett can go. David Moore, stay. Rico Dowdle, let him test it, but I think he's probably on his way out of Carolina. What about the defense? Who should stay? Who should go? And is there anybody worth letting test their market and coming back later for? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Welcome to the 5-hour energy flavor draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which just might be sleepers. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spot. 5-hour energy has a wide variety of flavors and something for everyone. Cherry is personally my favorite 5-hour energy shot and my number one pick in this flavor draft. I love the bold cherry candy style flavor. It's sweet with a little bit of tart edge and has a clean, slightly tangy finish. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for. Trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a higher than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Who on the Panthers defense that is a free agent should stay, who should go, and who should be allowed to test their market and circle back on them later. Taking a look at the unrestricted free agents, every single one of them defensively are in the secondary, and really only one of them is a starting player in someone who I don't want to say like he's the only one you'd be really interested in, but certainly one there's going to be a good conversation about bringing him back. Now, looking at the secondary and those five players, talk about Caleb Evans, Robert Rochelle, Damari Mathis, Nick Scott, and Isaiah Simmons. I'll go ahead and get Isaiah Simmons out the way. I've been very vocal recently that he is someone worth bringing back. Now, here's the thing. As a player, once you get drafted in the first round, in particular as high as Isaiah Simmons got drafted, you're going to get a bunch of chances in this league because somebody believes they can untap that potential. Or tap into that potential. Whatever. Someone believes that you are someone who they can fix, that they're the coach who's smart enough to get the best and get the most out of you. And Isaiah Simmons certainly would fall into that category after his time spent in Arizona, started off his career up in New York with the Giants. And I believe he was with the Packers last year in Carolina. He just came in to be a special teams guy. Dave, when he brought him in, or at least when they brought him in, and was asked about, okay, where he's going to play, linebacker, at safety, because a lot of people who are Panthers fans and just living here in the Carolinas remember what he did at Clemson and how he was utilized in a hybrid role there. And that's why a lot of people were interested in him being drafted by the Panthers back in 2020. Of course, Carolina went with Derek Brown. That was the correct pick, obviously, as we've seen how both these guys' careers have played out. But you do wonder, was Isaiah Simmons utilized properly in Arizona? There was another guy, a former Panther, in Hassan Reddick, who did not have a great career in Arizona, but then went on to have a good career here in Carolina, then up in Philadelphia, and turned out to be a solid player. So maybe it's the Cardinals and not necessarily the individual. Much like with the Jets, it's usually the quarterback. It's not the quarterback. It's usually the organization that's screwing up the quarterback, not the quarterback who's screwing up the organization. So maybe that's what it is with these kind of hybrid flex type players defensively when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals. Please don't get mad at me, Cardinals fans. But yeah, Isaiah Simmons at the very least can come in, play special teams. They have him listed as a safety. That's where they want him to play. Maybe there's something there. At the very least, he can be an impact player for you on special teams. He's a good athlete. I think that he should stay. The rest, Caleb Evans, he can go. Robert Rochelle, he would be a special teams guy. He can go. Damari Mathis, I mentioned this the other day. I think it would make sense for Carolina. You got Jaycee, and you also have Mike Jack on the outside starting in this upcoming season. Corey Thornton can be that backup on the outside. I think he's a solid player. He's still young, inexperienced, but he can be that backup. So you can certainly wonder, should they bring in a veteran behind Jaycee and behind Mike Jack? I don't have a problem with that. I thought, if anything, they'd want to bring in a veteran to compete for that slot corner position where Shaw Smith-Wade was a starter, then was replaced by Corey Thornton. Then Corey broke his leg, and then Shaw was right back out there again. Maybe bring in a vet to do that. Now, they did last year. It was Damari Mathis, who had played in Denver during Jero Rivera's lone season there as the DC. He's the person they brought in to be that insurance, be that veteran who maybe, had things played out the way they kind of did this past season, would have been the starter. But he tore his ACL after only 1 week in Carolina. And that was late in training camp. I mean, the roster was already set by that point in time. So training camp was over. Preseason was over. It was just practice heading into week one, the week prior to week one. So he is somebody, I'm sure, with the Jero back, they're going to want to look at. So I'm cool with him sticking around and just seeing what he can be for you at the very least. And then if it doesn't work out, you can cut him after the preseason, after training camp and all of that. The last one is Nick Scott. Nick Scott played and started in every game last year at safety. I think he's a better player than people gave him credit for, but I also believe the Panthers can find someone better at safety. Now, like with Damari Mathis, probably to a greater extent, he would be someone that they're going to be interested in bringing back. With Ejiro having brought him here, basically have started him this past year, and they had guys like Jordan Fuller, who they moved on from. They had Xavier Woods, who they moved on from. They brought back Nick, and they put Nick right in there to start. And it's not like they went out there and got a safety in the draft early. They got Lathan Ransom in the 4th round, but they didn't get anyone early enough to where you thought, oh yeah, that guy's gonna be a day one starter. And I was startled. And that's not like a negative thing. I was just surprised when I saw that Nick was out there a ton during training camp. And then it became very clear that he was going to be the starting safety. And if you watch the season, that was the case every single week. And he had his moments just like every player, but overall, he was solid for them. He was a lot better than he was in 2024 when he was banged up. And that's just with a safety room that was very disappointing for Carolina. So I think what they should do is let him test the market. I don't know how many teams are trying to bang on his door and get him to come be their starter this upcoming season. I think Carolina should look at the safety market, evaluate what they have right now in Lathan Ransom, and then go from there. I don't think this is a decision that needs to be made right off the bat. Now, the fact that he did start after 2 tough seasons, one in Cincinnati where he was benched midway through the year, and then his first year in Carolina. Maybe his rating has gone up across the league. I don't know, but I think that what they should do is allow him to test the market and be open to him leaving or coming back. That's the way I look at it for him. Now, as far as the rest of the free agents defensively, they're all restricted. You got LeBron Ray, Thomas Incoom, Clyde and Sherlis. Now, Incoom and Sherlis, both of those guys at the outside linebacker spot, they are special teams aces for Carolina, and I think they should stay. We've seen Claudin have to start a couple of games because of injuries the last couple of seasons at inside linebacker. I would bring him back. I would bring back Thomas Incoom, who played over 90% of the special team snaps last season in Carolina. Yeah, he should come back. And then with LeBron Ray, what will be interesting to monitor here is what happens with A'Shawn Robinson. We've talked about A'Shawn being the most obvious cap casualty for Carolina. Now, when you look at the defensive tackle room, Derek Brown is the alpha, probably the best player on this team. Maybe not even a probably about that, but he is the guy that everything is going to revolve around in that room. Turk Wharton, Bobby Brown III, probably didn't make the kind of impact that people were hoping for last year, but they were better than what they had the season prior. Now, PFF would say they were about the same, but A'Shawn Robinson is a big piece of that. And obviously, Derek Brown being out there helped immensely this defense and that defensive tackle room, the interior of the defensive line. So I think A'Shawn's second best guy they have. And letting him go and saving $10.5 million, not necessarily ideal. And if that does happen, then they probably want to bring back LeBron Ray. I would say go, but that's one to monitor as hell. I don't think a lot of teams are going to be offering him an offer sheet. So Carolina can wait. And they have until April, really, for all this to get figured out. So I think that he should go, but I would not be surprised if he stays. So Caleb Evans, Robert Rochelle, they can go. Tamari Mathis, stick around. Nick Scott, let him test it out. Isaiah Simmons, stay. LeBron Ray, go. Thomas Incoom, stay. Claude Sherlock, stay. And, oh, yeah, special teams. JJ Jansen, he's back. Sam Martin, I think he should stay. I've already let that be known, but let's throw him in there with defense as well as the other unrestricted free agent heading into free agency in a couple of weeks. So Sam Martin, come on back for year 2. Of the situations that we're looking at heading into free agency, which ones are the ones to monitor the closest? I'll tell you that here in just a moment on the Locked On Panthers.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
There's a few situations heading into free agency that I'll be monitoring the closest. The offensive line is certainly one of those. We talked about Ickey, his situation, what's going to happen there at left tackle. There's 2 starting spots they got to figure out. It's left tackle and it's center. It was only supposed to be center, and really it could be pretty simple where they just bring back Cade Mays. Again, I don't know how much they value him just based off of their actions. You may like Cade and think he should be back. That does not necessarily mean that they are there with you. Now, I'm not saying that they're not there. I'm just looking at what they did. We talked to Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer about this a couple weeks ago, and I brought up what I brought up to y'all earlier and have before, and he said, well, I think you kind of answered your question, that maybe they don't love Cade as much as the fan base does and think that he should be the starting center. So we'll see how that plays out with if they go after someone like a Tyler Linderbaum and spend a lot of money in free agency, because they've been willing. They spent a lot on Robert Hunt, spent a lot on Damian Lewis. They're spending a lot on Taylor Moton, and they're about to spend a lot on Ickey Ekwonu, which is another situation I'm going to monitor closely as we head into free agency here in Carolina. So we'll see how that plays out. But really, left tackle, that feels like the most pressing thing because, man, I mean, the interior is obviously important because the center, like that guy needs to be a leader, needs to be vocal. He's the protection, he's touching the ball every single play. Like that matters. And you got to be stout in the interior, knowing, especially with the smaller quarterback like Bryce Young, like that was part of what they wanted to do 2 off seasons ago when they brought in D-Lou and Robert Hunt. They needed to make sure that they were stout right there. And we'll see what they do at that spot. I would not be surprised if they spend a lot of money. Would not be shocked to bring back Cade Mays. But left tackle, there's not a lot of great options, guys, because if you're a good tackle, teams are just not letting it go. Those guys do not hit free agency, the top ones at least. Typically, it does not happen. We see it happen where there's someone who's like, okay, we're good here. They can go. But, man, that's a tough one for me. That's a tough one to see how that's going to play out. So I'm looking at that. Rico Dowdle, obviously looking at that. Change agencies. Seemed like he wasn't going to come back to Carolina, but then I suppose there's been some social media stuff. I haven't really seen what he said. I've just seen Panther fans talking about it. So maybe there's a little bit more momentum to him coming back to Carolina. Dan Morgan has always said from the beginning when we had the conversation with him a couple days after the season was over that he and Rico had good conversations. They'll talk about it and all of that. They have 3 guys already. They've invested in that room by extending Chuba, by drafting Jonathan Brooks, and they traded up to go get him. They drafted Trevor Etienne. Running backs matter in Carolina. They have said that, and they have certainly proven that to be true based off of their actions. Though, how much do they matter? How much does Rico Dowdle matter to them going into this next season? We'll find out about that. And then safety, that's another one to look at. Are they good with Nick Scott? Or are they good with Lathan Ransom? Do they want to find an upgrade there at that position? Those are the situations. Just looking at the guys who are free agents right now heading into the new league year, those situations I'll be monitoring the closest here coming up here on Locked On Panthers. So tune in, of course. But that's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And make sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and over on Blue Sky at Julian Council. You know why? Because tomorrow, we're doing it. The weekly Friday mailbag is back. So at me, DM me, get them questions in on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. Get them in by like 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, because that's probably when I'm going to record the episode. So get them in by then, and I'll answer the best ones on Friday's show. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always and forever. Keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Friday.